I asked my big brother, I said, hey, man, is my Heisman the same Heisman they got, man? I mean, of course, everybody say, man, this Notre Dame kid is not going to fit in out in the bad boys of Oakland. I was asking my guys, I was like, hey, man, was I in mud? I mean, what's up, you know? And everybody's like, hey, man, don't ever run behind Bo. Whatever you do, don't run behind him. It hit me like a ton of bricks, man. Because a lot of what I was doing, guys, I was doing to get affirmation from him.
Born and raised Dallas, Texas. How you end up going to Notre Dame and not UT?
I have a pretty hilarious UT story. So growing up in Texas, man, like you say, every kid dreamt of going to University of Texas, and SMU towards the end of my high school time because of Eric Dickerson and Craig James and that deal they had going on there. But it was all about UT, man. Every time UT came to the Cotton Bowl, brother, I was there. Some kind of way, brother. Sneaking in gates and all that kind of stuff. You know, I mean, I ain't have no ticket, but, you know, we got in. But, man, let me tell you, brother, Fred Akers came to see me at my high school. And they got me out of class, right? So I go into the gym, and he's talking to my my head coach. And when I walked in the room, bro, he didn't acknowledge me at all. Didn't shake my hand, and I was like, this is just a little weird. So our coach said, hey, you guys go in my office. We went in his office, man, and he never said hello. He never said anything to me. Never addressed me at all. The only thing he said to me, Andre, was he was sitting, had his feet up on my coach's desk, man, looking up at the ceiling. Never forget this, obviously. It scarred me. But that brother said, man, he said, I know you're a poor inner city kid. And then he put his feet down, man, and slammed the desk. But doggone it, we know you're coming to Texas, right? And because I've been taking some trips to Notre Dame and all these other places. And, man, I stood up, extended my hand to him, and said, I'm not a poor inner city kid. So my daddy got a good job. We got a good house. And that was it. I walked out. They never called me again, and I never talked to them again. So, but anyway, brother, it was a little disappointment for me because, you know, I really wanted to go down and visit Texas and do all that stuff. But I saw after 2 minutes with him, I want to know parts of, you know, being coached by him. So.
Okay, so you get to Notre Dame, and obviously you get there. We ain't even going to start to talk about your career yet, but talk about Lou Holtz for a little bit. I had a chance to play for Lou Holtz his last year of coaching when he was at the University of South Carolina when he retired. So you had him very early on in his career. Just talk about the presence someone like Lou Holtz had and how did it affect you a little bit on your career.
Yeah, well, you know, when he first got there, man, he instituted 5 a.m. workouts in the winter. So we're trudging through snow, getting to 5 a.m. workouts. And so we did that for about a month. And then when it came time for us to go outside and actually practice with spring ball, after 2 days of spring ball, he pulled me over and asked me a litany of questions like, hey, you know, why aren't you playing? Why didn't they play you more? You know, I saw you were playing, but why didn't they feature you? And I was like, Coach, you know, they just didn't play me. Don't you lie to me, kid. Was it drugs? Was it women? Was it your grades? You tell me the truth, kid. I was like, hey, Coach, really, there's no coaching staff in America dumb enough not to play you. You tell me what it was. So he told me after 2 days, man, of being outdoors that he thought I could win the Heisman Trophy. And he said, you know, I don't know what they were thinking, but he said, all I can tell you, if the defense don't intercept the snap from the center to the quarterback, I'm going to get you the ball. And so, and after that, man, you know, I had this whole deal. And you guys asked how I got to Notre Dame. I literally got there. My brother was a big Notre Dame fan. He's 8 years older. And he knew all about the education and all that. And he told my parents, look, if they want him a year from now, that's where he should go. And I knew nothing about ND. I had to go look it up in the library to find out where it was. And when I found out how far away it was, I wanted no parts of it, right? Because I wanted to stay close to home. But my brother convinced my parents that it was all about education, that even if football didn't work out, he had a great life ahead of him. And so I told Coach, look, man, I came here, get this education, go back home, marry my high school sweetheart, be a deacon in the church. I'm good. So he was looking at me like I'm crazy, right? And he was the only guy, only coach to pull me over and say, look, man, you can have both. I mean, you can have all that, but you can also have a great NFL career. And with that, man, I started looking at the game of football differently, and things just really took off from there.
Talk about your historic year. What at point during the season did you think that you actually had a chance to win the Heisman? And then fast forward a little bit and talk about the fraternity of the Heisman, how you guys get together to shoot the commercials and all. You know, we watch from afar and all those things. So just talk about the experience a little bit when you was in college, going through that, and then when you was able to retire and get into the next phase of your life and still being a part of that.
Yeah, I think for me, man, my last year, my last game, my junior year at USC, I had a huge game, returning punts and kicks and big couple of big catches. At the end of the game, we were down by, I think, 17 points in the fourth quarter. We came back and win that game. It was only our fifth win of the year, so we weren't going to any bowl game. But he's passed away now, but his name was Jim Murray. And he was a big time reporter from LA Times and one of the guys who voted for the Heisman. And if he said something about the Heisman, people usually listen to him. So he told me in the locker room that I was going to be the front runner for the Heisman, his front runner for the Heisman next year. So I tripped on that a little bit, right? But at the same time, I knew there was a lot of football to be played. But the second game of my senior year, I returned two punts back to back, literally probably within 10 minutes of actual time because I returned a punt. They didn't go to a commercial. We went, our defense they go 3 and out. So I'm right back out there and I returned another punt, and so after that, I think I was the front runner. Now, nobody kicked me the ball again the rest of the year. They were kicking balls out of bounds. We played USC again in Notre Dame, man. They averaged like 12 yards a punt. Literally, they had the guy just punting the ball out of bounds. So, I think at that point I realized, it was mine not to lose, but if I did make a couple other big plays on the kickoff return or whatever, and I think that sort of got me over the hump. It was a little weird for me because I grew up a Dallas Cowboy fan and a huge Tony Dorsett and Roger Staubach fan. And I can remember the night they said I won the Heisman. Roger Staubach and Dorsett were there. I asked my big brother. I said, "Hey, man, is my Heisman the same Heisman they got, man?" I mean, you're a kid, man. You're still a kid at heart when you see these guys in the room. That freaked me out just by them being there. But it's hard for me to understand that the guys who I grew up watching, I'm now a part of that fraternity, man. And it is a pretty strong fraternity. We go through a lot of stuff with the Heisman Trust. That's a whole nother story. But guys, those commercials, man, are the most. I tell you what, bro, I know what they show on TV, but if they would show the stuff that we do in the back, bro, that would be a hit. Because I can tell you, man, nobody has any immunity in there, brother. You walk in the room, you gonna get it. So it's a fun time, though.
No, that's awesome, man. I can only imagine being around those guys. Let's fast forward and go to the Oakland Raiders. Just talk about what is that like? I've had a chance to go and play against the Raiders a few times. I always tell people that's an experience that you'll probably never experience, with playing in the NFL. Just talk about that and just being part of one of the most historic teams of the NFL.
Yeah, of course, everybody say, man, this Notre Dame kid is not going to fit in out in the bad boys of Oakland, But, I was actually drafted by the LA Raiders, and we played there for 4 years, I think, and then we moved to Oakland. But the thing I loved about the organization was that throughout the history of the team, you may have had some bad boys, but man, when it came to Sundays, these guys, man, they gave they all, man. I mean, they literally sold out. their souls to the team, man. I mean, we had some incredible teams, man, and always would have something happen. Way back in 1990, when we had Bo Jackson and Marcus Allen, and we on our way to the AFC Championship game, and boom, one play, Bo Jackson's done, right? He's out for the year. His career is over. Football career is over anyway. In 2000, 10 years later, you know what I mean? We're playing. We were in the AFC Championship game versus Baltimore. Halfway into the game, Rich Gannon, shoulder out, done. You know what I mean? He's out for the rest of the game. So always had stuff like that to happen, man. But I've always we kept fighting, kept trying to make our way through everything. Finally got there, in 2002. Didn't go well for us, but at least we got there. But I just think it's an organization, man. It always seems like their backs are against the wall, always fighting with the NFL about something, always something going on. But I can tell you, man, it's one of the best fan bases in the world. These guys, they love you deep. I mean, I can't tell you guys, Andre, how many times guys have flown to Dallas to get me to write my name on their arm or on their leg or on their back so they can go get a tattoo. I mean, bruh, I always have like 3 people with me, brother, because you just never know, right? but so the fan base is unbelievable, man. And, and that's the one thing that I carry with me today. I try and connect with Raider Nation once or twice a year. I do fundraisers and all that stuff in Dallas, and it's all based around the Raider fans.
Tell us a little bit about Bo, man. I think a lot of people don't realize how great of an athlete Bo was. And I know for me, growing up as a kid, it was always the Bo Knows commercials and things of that nature. He was a guy that I know for me growing up as a kid, a lot of kids wanted to be like. So talk a little bit about Bo and talk about him as an athlete.
Well, let me tell you this, bro. My rookie year, now you have to understand, I ran 4.34, 4.36, whatever at the combine. So I wasn't no slouch. You know what I mean? I can get up and go. And we're playing Denver Broncos, bro. Never forget it. We have a play called 16 Bob Trio. My job is to come in motion. I'm going to come down, hit the safety. If they're in cover 3, all goes well. Bo comes right off my butt, right? And sure enough, just like clockwork, man, Bo came right off my butt. And I think we were on like our 35 or whatever, you know what I mean? So, hey, my idea was, let's go catch Bo. Let's put your head down. Bro, I put my head down, and when I raised up, guys, it was like a cartoon, man. I mean, this guy was like separated from me. And it was on our sideline, so I just ran off the field. So I was asking my guys, I was like, hey, man, was I in mud? I mean, what's up, And everybody was like, hey, man, don't ever run behind Bo. Whatever you do, don't run behind him. I mean, to see a guy 6'2", 240, run a 4.140, you know what I mean? And it was really just amazing, man, to see how physically gifted he was. Now Bo stuttered back in the day, so I'm not making fun of him, but this is just the way it came out. We were installing plays, right? We were installing plays, man. And he said, coach, right? He said, Bo don't need no blocking. He said, Bo don't need no blocking. And everybody was like, whoa, Bo lost his mind. And so everybody take a 5-minute break, right? So they worked something. We came back in, man. Coach had erased it. And he said, okay, this is the play. So, bro, we had a play called Bo reverse right, Bo reverse left, right? So we would pitch the ball to the left, right? And they had me to break my split down. And they said, Tim, just fly across the field. So basically, everybody would just run left. And Bo would take a couple steps and reverse and and go back. And he would have no blocking. And he would just run over people or run around people or run away from people. Whatever he had to do, he would do. So I don't think there's anybody who has ever, a running back, said, I don't need any blocking. but I mean, he was so talented. He knew that sometimes blockers got in his way, and so he met some average 40 yards a carry on that doggone play. But yeah, so I mean, it was devastating, man, when he went down for sure, because not just because of football, because of the bow nose and everything of that nature that he was doing at that time. But what an incredible guy, man! I tell you, he never lifted weights. He only did pull ups and push ups and sit ups. That's all he did, and he was just a beast, man. He was just a beast of an athlete, and I don't think there were ever now. I Rocket obviously is not the size, but when it came to speed and agility on the football field, Rocket probably came close for to guys I played with anyway. But Bo, man, when it came to pure strength and speed, and I don't think there'll ever be anybody ever match that.
With that Raider team, you was loaded. You guys had plenty of talent. Obviously, Rod Woodson, Charles Woodson, Shane Leckler, guy that I played with. Just, a couple great coaches. But obviously, just like Andre, you had a slew of quarterbacks also throwing you the ball. Rich Gannon had the MVP season. He was always one of my favorite quarterbacks when I was a young kid. Just for me, I never seen a white guy that can run like that other than Steve Young. And seeing him run up and down the field and make plays. And just talk about how you was able to sustain a long career without having a quarterback every year to get you the ball. I know how hard and difficult it is. Andre faced some of the same things.
Yeah, 20 quarterbacks, man. How many did you end up with, Andre?
I think I had 17.
Yeah. I thought their number was pretty close. Yeah, 20 of them, brother. 20 of them. But the thing that I figured out, like I said, I ran 4.3, but with the Raiders, I was always the second or third fastest receiver. We always had Willie Gault.
Yep.
We Willie Gault for 5 or 6 years, and then they brought in James Jett, who was an Olympic track guy, right? So he was like a 4.1 guy. So that meant that I wasn't going to be the guy running the deep passes all the time. I was going to be the intermediate pass catcher or whatever. So, but the one thing I realized that every time they threw Willie or James a ball and they didn't catch it, they went off the field. You know what I mean? Every time. You know what I mean? And I was like, man, I don't want that, but I want to stay on the field. You know what I mean? So all those 5, 10, 15-yard routes, I loved it. And the one thing that I figured out, every NFL quarterback, in my opinion anyway, can throw the ball 5, 10, 15 yards down the middle of the field. You know what I mean? Because if you can't do that, then you got a real problem. But it's when they got to open up left or close right when they make mistakes throwing the ball. So, and I would always tell these guys, man, especially a young quarterback, hey, I'm gonna be right there for you. I'm right over the ball if you need me, bro. So I always gave them a little reminder. Hey, man, Tom Marinovich, God bless him, man. He was a great talent, man. And unfortunately, his boys just ran him in the ground, man, with drugs and all that stuff. But this brother, man, he wasn't known for studying the playbook. And also, they call a play for this brother. They call a play. He'll call a play in the huddle, and I'm leaving the huddle and say, Tim, what you got? What you running? I got a 12-yard hook, man. I got a 12-yard hook. Okay. He ain't looking at nobody else. He with that left hand, he throwing the ball right to me. So no, man, it was a very interesting time. Played with a lot of young quarterbacks. Even when I was young, we were playing with young quarterbacks. Played with some old guys, Vince Evans. I don't know if you guys even know that name. Old brother, man. Vince, man. Vince, an old brother, played with Chicago Bears for a while. Went to USC. I mean, Vince is probably about 70 years old now. I mean, that's how old he was at the time. But yeah. So, but I mean, look, man, if you're going to play the game and you're going to try to be successful, you got to work with the guys you had. And I mean, Al was never into going out getting the big time quarterbacks. He really wanted to pay money on defense. He used to say all the time, "There's not an offensive player worth $1 million." But the defensive guys, he'll pay $2 or $3 million. So that's just the way he looked at it, unfortunately. And Jeff George came through for a minute. That was my best year in the league. I caught 104 passes with him. And we had the quarterback that won the championship for the Giants. Jeff Hostetler.
Jeff Hostetler.
Hostella.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hostetler was tough, man. You know, with him, I had my first Pro Bowl year as a receiver in '93. Because when he got there, he was like, "Hey, I don't know what they've been doing, but I'm throwing you the ball every chance I get." So, but he was at the end of his career. You know, a couple of injuries, and he was done by '95. So I had two or three guys who could really get it done. But those other 17, man, you just had to work with them and make it happen. You know what I mean? So
You one of the top kick returners of all time, punt returners of all time. How is it to keep yourself mentally into that type of phase to where most receivers, when you start catching 100 balls and all that, I'm not going back there to catch punts. How did you keep your mind and your mentality into that, not worried about getting injured, guys flying down? It ain't like it is today. You can catch that punt back then, and he can just go on and put you through the back of the end zone.
yeah, I told my agent, man, when I before I got drafted, that I thought I could make a career returning punts and kicks. I really thought I had a knack for doing that at a very high level, and we were talking about that because my last year at Notre Dame, I was in a wishbone offense, bro. We went to a wishbone offense because our quarterback Terry Andreziak got hurt in the opening game of the year versus Michigan, so they brought in Tony Rice, and Tony Rice, man, couldn't hit the side of a barn if you got him 5 yards to the barn. I mean, he got a lot better, but initially, so we had to run the ball. So I was in a wishbone offense. So I didn't know what my first year or two was going to be in the league because, I didn't know what the transition was going to be, right? I didn't know how going from literally a 3-point stance to upright was what the adjustment was going to be. So I think from my standpoint, what I wanted to do was just come into the league, man, and just be a player, right? The very first time I touched the ball in the NFL, the opening kickoff, the first game, I returned the kick 97 yards for a touchdown. Now I've never returned a kick again for a touchdown. I had a couple of punt returns, but at least I had done it. And, everybody was saying I couldn't do it in college, in the NFL, what I did in college. So I put that to rest, pretty quickly. But yeah, man, for me, as I got older, I didn't want to return punts, but I was always on the depth chart. And it just seems like, man, when them dog days come, man, everybody, you go from 5 on the chart, and all of a sudden you 3. Then when you get to 2, on the depth chart, it's tough because it's just around the corner now. So you got to really get your mind right. But I mean, in 2001, when I was 35, I became the oldest man in the history of the league to return a punt for a touchdown. And my last year in the league at 38, I became the oldest man in the league to return a punt period for a touchdown. Now, those records going to stand because nobody's going to be dumb enough to be returning punts at 35 years old anymore. So, but I can remember that the punt I returned at 35. Look, I went out there like this, bro, with my hand on my head already, ready to fair catch. I didn't care where they were. I was like, as soon as that ball pumped up, my head was up. So I fair caught the ball, and they were legally downfield. So my good friend Randy Jordan, man, he came running down the field. Jim Brown, you better return this kick. I said, Randy, if anybody touches me, we're gonna be fighting after this game. So I mean, I returned the kick 89 yards for a touchdown, didn't get touched at all. So, but it was just something that I felt like I always loved to start the game returning a punt. I felt like when I dodging those guys or getting hit or whatever, always got me ready. If you weren't ready to play football after you return a punt, you weren't ready to play. You know what I mean? So it was always a big thing for me and part of my game.
I heard you bring up Al Davis. I want to get off script a little bit. I know for me, I've had a chance to meet Al, when I early, came into my career. Just kind of talk about him and the impact he's had on the game of football. I think a lot of people don't, really know that. But just kind of talk about him and the impact that he's had on the game of football.
Yeah, well, Al was a trailblazer, no doubt about that, man. I think, going from being a coach to being an owner, everything that happened with the AFL, he was a big part of, the merger from the AFL to the NFL, you know, having Jim Plunkett and um, other folks to be the first minority quarterbacks, to play in NFL. Hiring Art Shell to be the first modern day African American player to be coach to coach in the NFL. He was all about that, man. He was all about trailblazing and all about doing whatever it took to win football games. And I think that was the thing that really because I didn't know anything about Al. I didn't know anything about the Raiders, so it was a whole lesson for me, getting to know the guys. The great thing about the Raiders, they always got former players around. I mean,
Yeah.
guys are always at practice, guys are always at games, what I
Yeah.
mean? Always have guys around, man. And I really think that is probably the biggest legacy that he's going to leave is how well he took care of his players. And even now the Raiders are the only team in the league that are doing these reunions where I went for the game Friday night, man. When they were playing the 49ers, you had almost 300 players back for this deal, and the Raiders paid for their hotels, paid for food, paid for all that. You know what I mean? And then back in June, they had a big wellness deal where they brought in all these doctors, the NFL, the NFLPA, really trying to take care of their players, man. And all that came from Al. I mean, he was known for if a guy was having some issues, financial or whatever, he was there for him. And I just don't think that a lot of owners connect to their players like that. I think, they may have one or two guys who are superstars for them. They may connect with those guys, but it didn't matter with Al. They bring guys back, man, for this reunion deal. If you in training camp, if you're in training camp with the Raiders, never played a game, but if you're in training camp, you can come back to this reunion deal. You know what I mean? So I just think that opening up for guys in that matter I mean, some of us have gone on to do a lot of great things, but there are a lot of guys who don't, and they don't have that connectedness. You know what I mean? And now because they can put on their calendar 3 days a year that they can go and be with the boys again and be in the locker room like we like to talk about all the time. Because when you get away from that, it becomes a little problematic for you.
Yeah, that's something me and J. Joe can say this. We actually went to the game when the Texans played in Vegas against the Raiders, and we got a chance to spend some time with some of the guys who were Raiders, former players, and just to hear the things that they talked about and the way that they're treated. That was a test. That's why I brought up Al Davis, man. Like everybody I've heard speak about him, like I said, I've got a chance to meet him a couple times, but I've always heard great things about him. So I just wanted, to really just.
And let me say this, man, because my relationship with him was different, and I didn't know why, and I finally figured it out. Initially not initially. He wanted to draft Ricky Dixon, who was at Oklahoma, and Ricky went the pick before me in the draft. He went 5, and I was there for 6 for the Raiders, and they ended up taking me. But he wasn't too happy about that, right? Even though I had a little speed or whatever, he didn't like the fact that a lot of Notre Dame guys, a couple years before I came into the league. Had came into the league and decided, hey, look, I can go make more money on Wall Street at this point. So I'm not going to sit here and bang my head in. I'll take that little signing bonus, but I'm out. So that was a real thing that had happened for some of the Notre Dame guys. So I knew that there was, and Notre Dame told us this, right? So we knew it coming into the league. So, initially Al and I never really had a real strong relationship. And matter of fact, I sort of got to the point where I was like, well, come on, bro. Hold on one second, bro. Hold on. I'm holding this thing down for you at this point. and I'm not getting no love for you, right? But so my career is over. I'm going into the Hall of Fame. I don't mention him in my Hall of Fame speech. And my wife has owned me about that, but I don't mention him in my Hall of Fame speech, right? So a couple years later, I'm getting inducted into the California Hall of Fame. And it hit me like a ton of bricks, man, because a lot of what I was doing, guys, I was doing to get uh, affirmation from him,
Right.
right? You know what I mean? You know, you score a touchdown, you lead, you do something great in the community, you do, you know, and you do that old step and picture, you know, hey, is that good enough for you? Is that good enough for you? You know what I mean? And it never hit me that, and this is what hit me, man. And I may get a little spiritual here, man, but I'll come back. But the spirit told me, it's like, Tim, what if Al Davis would have patted you on the back and say, Tim, let's go to dinner. Let's go to, he said, would you have leveled off or would you have even declined? Because maybe that thing would have been a thing that makes you go, oh, okay, I can relax now.
Right.
But because he didn't, you kept, you know, fighting and fighting and fighting until your last game with the Raiders. You did that. You know what I mean? So Mark Davis happens to be at this California Hall of Fame deal, and there were about 400 people there. And I literally said to people, hey, look, if all y'all want to get up and go, y'all can, because I'm talking to one guy right now. And so I just, whether it was an apology or not, I just explained my whole situation to Mark over, you know, in front of 400 people. But, you know, so it was amazing. But then somebody else said, Tim, who else did he not have a good relationship with? Fred Biletnikoff, Howie Long, Marcus Allen, the Stork. You know what I mean? What are all those guys? All those guys are Hall of Famers, man. You know what I mean? So he knew what he was doing, you know, and it just took me a little while to figure it out, man. But yeah, look, man, wouldn't have done anything any differently. You know what I mean? Enjoyed my 16 years. I played more games for him than anybody in the history of the franchise, and I hope that when he closed his eyes for the last time, you know, when he thought of Tim Brown, he knew that I gave him everything I possibly could.
All right. I like to fast forward, talk about a little bit of time of the competition back then. You know, you had your other receivers, Jerry Rice and all those guys. Was it like a friendly competition, or it was like, hey, I'm trying to get to the top, I'm chasing him? Or was it just, you know, I'm trying to do what's best for my team, best for me and my family or whatever? How was that back then?
Yeah, well, we talked about them 20 quarterbacks I had, right? We got to be realistic about what we're talking about here. I can tell you that. But so I do. This is what I will say. And, you know, I was in a situation that I would have traded with any of those guys. You know what I mean? I would have traded with Chris Carter. I would have traded with Irvin. I would have traded with Jerry. I would have traded with any of those guys. Not one of them would have traded with me.
Right.
Now one of them would have said, Tim, yeah, I'll take that. You know what I mean? So I knew that I was in a precarious situation, but at the same time, I never looked at it as competition. You know, in '93, I made the Pro Bowl my rookie year. I tore my knee up my second year, so I was out that whole year. Came back in 91. I think I made the Pro Bowl again as a punt returner. So, you know, I was starting to feel better. I was still not starting. When I got hurt, Al Davis told me that I was going to be the best punt returner, third down receiver to ever play the game. But I would never play on first and second down again. So my first 4 or 5 years, I didn't even play on first and second down. Now I ended up leading the team in receptions in my rookie year because Willie Gault got hurt, Mervin got hurt, and James Lofton got hurt. So I ended up leading the team in receptions. But after my injury, 90, 91, 92, I never played on first and second down. I only played on third down and return punts. Mervin gets hurt halfway through the season in 92, and I think I put up like 50 catches in 7 games or something like that. And, you know, so I came into the year, the next year, the starter, made the Pro Bowl as my first year as starting at receiver. So, you know, so I believe, you know, after that, man, it was really just a matter of, so I'm over at the Pro Bowl, right? I ain't gonna say no names, but my contract was up that year, and there was some talk about me, possibly leaving the Raiders. I ended up signing with the Broncos that year, but the Raiders brought me back. So one of the receivers said, Tim Brown, I hear you talking about coming up to the NFC. And they would say, well, if you do, take a picture of this because you will never see this again. Basically saying I will never make a Pro Bowl again. So, I'm not one of those brothers, but that got under my skin a little bit. Now I will say this. I made the Pro Bowl like 7 more times, and that brother never came back again. So, but we ain't gonna talk about that. But I mean, look, with Jerry having Steve Young and Montana, man, like you said, the fight wasn't fair. You know what I mean? So, I mean, Chris Carter had Randy Moss and Jake Reed. You know what I mean? The fight ain't fair, bro. So I'm out here fighting. With Willie Galt and James Lofton, and James Jack. Lofton was gone by then. He was up in Buffalo. So look, I mean, I just, I never tried to look at it that way because, I just didn't think I can go into a game thinking that I was going to have 10 balls even thrown to me. Before Gruden got there, man, if you look at my touchdowns before Gruden got there, I think I may have scored 1 touchdown in the red zone in 10 years. 10 years into my career, I've only scored 1 touchdown in the red zone. All my touchdowns came from 20 yards out because when we got Al, going back to what I said about Al and offensive players, he knew that if I scored touchdowns, I would probably win more money. So literally either I was on the backside of plays or they brought me out of the game. So I was never – so when Gruden got there, he was like, dude, what is this? What's going on with you in red zone? I said, well, that's the rule around here. Don't throw Tim Brown the ball in the red zone. And he was like, what are we talking about? What are we trying to do here? I said, hey, bro, that's just a rule. I'm good with it because I can't go nowhere. I can't leave. You know what I mean? So no free agency for me. So he said to me, he said, I'm going to throw you the ball in the red zone. I said, you're going to get fired. So I think I only had 40, 45 catches in 10 years, touchdowns, right? In 4 years with him, I had 40, 45 touchdowns. You know what I mean? And that got me in a position to get to 100 touchdowns. You know what I mean? So, that's y'all bringing some stuff up now, man.
So let's, I mean, even after, man, 16, 17 years playing the game, all the catches, all the yards, the 19 quarterbacks. What was it like? And I tell people this all the time because they ask me, I get asked all the time. What was it like getting that knock for the Hall of Fame? What can you take us through that moment when you had that?
Yeah, pretty interesting, man. I had waited.
Tim, 1 second. Tim, 1 second. I'm going to jump in there before you get to talking about that because both of y'all wasn't on that first ballot. So before you get to when you got the knock, let's talk about that a little bit first because y'all both probably should have been first ballots.
Yeah, I mean, when I retired, man, I was number 2 in catches, 3 in touchdowns, 3 in yards when I retired. So now I knew when I retired, Jerry was going back. He had went to training camp. He got cut by the Raiders and picked up by Denver, and then some kind of way ended up in Seattle that year. But because he only played a couple games, and once he retired, he went back to our year, to the guys who retired in 05. And I was hoping that he would be a year after us. So, because Chris Carter had retired, Andre Reed had retired. And so we were thinking, oh, well, maybe they'll do a receiver, Hall of Fame or whatever, And of course, Jerry went in first ballot. And then so we were thinking, okay, well, they just gonna pick us off and we'll be cool with that, right? And that didn't happen. They waited 3 years before they got to us. And I think that was the thing that really, got under our skin was, I mean, we get Jerry as Jerry, the GOAT, whatever you want to say, we get that. But we got to wait 3 years, to get in, you know what I mean? And, so they put in Chris first, Andre, then, I went in third. And so Yeah, by then, brother, I was, I was unlike Tim Brown. Let's put it that way. That's for sure. Because you don't get it. You don't understand. You know what I mean? You can talk about championships and all that. Chris didn't have a championship. Andre been there, 4 times.
Four
He didn't
times,
win.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's not make it just about that at that position. You know what I mean? So it was tough. It was tough, no doubt about it. It was tough, no doubt about it. But at the same time, man, when I did get the knock, of course they had told us then that it was going to be a phone call, that you would get a phone call. So I'm on the bed right by the phone, brother. And I got up to go to the restroom, and that's where the knock came. So I told my son, "Hey, Timmy, get the door, right?" And and I hear him say, "Dad," like in that voice, like there's something going on here. And so I come around the corner, man, and Big Dave is standing there. Did you ever meet Dave Baker? Baker, did you ever?
No, I didn't. I never had a chance to meet Dave.
I mean, Dave's head is about, he looks like Shrek. You know what I mean? He's 6'8", 400 pounds, man. So, I mean, talking about filling the door, and he had all these cameras around him and all that stuff. And of course, he, convinced to tell, oh, your butts would be there for 40,000 years and all that stuff. And by that time, brother, it's amazing how quickly you forget, how long you have to wait. And because that moment is a moment that you'll never forget. Now, my son, after they left and all that stuff, I called my parents and we got on the conversation of, yeah, maybe I should have gone in a little earlier. And my son, 12 years old at the time, sitting right next to me, and he waited till I got the phone, man. He said to me, "Dad," he said, "I know you probably wanted to go in earlier, but," he said, "if you would have gone in, then me and," he has a twin sister, Marmar. "Me and Marmar wouldn't have understood." He's only 12 years old,
Sure.
and they were 12 years old. And he said, "But today we understand. So we're glad that you're going in now and not before." So of course that made me feel like like the worst dad ever, right? Sitting there thinking about myself and not my kids. But yeah, man, it was a tough moment, Andre. I know it was tough for you too, brother. But like I said, for me, when people bring it up now, on the street, I'm looking at them like, what are you talking about? I mean, it's like, bro, I'm in the Hall of Fame. That's all that matters. So, it is what it is. So,
I got to do this because we both play the wide receiver position. Give me your top 5 wide receivers all time. It doesn't matter the order, but just give me your top 5.
it's so hard, man, because of the eras that we all played in, right?
Right.
I think, what was done back in the day, man, watching these guys play, Fred Biletnikoff, you know what I mean? Steve Largent. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been on a football field and watched Steve Largent run routes, bro. But my rookie year, it was the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. You know what I mean? Of course, Jerry is gonna always be there. I think Randy Moss changed the game, without a doubt. I think he proved to 6'4" swing guards that you can play football. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There hasn't been that many transformational guys, but I think those 4 guys have been pretty amazing as far as I'm concerned. And now in today's game, to me, it's all about the quarterback. The quarterbacks. If you don't have an amazing quarterback, you don't have a chance to win. You look at Tyreek and his ability to do what he does. I mean, he's a freak of nature for sure. But when they were there, they didn't win a championship with him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or did he win one? I don't know if he won one or not. I don't think he did.
He won one with Kansas City. Yeah, he did win one.
But I mean, you would have thought that he would have been able to transform that Miami team, but it hasn't happened yet. But I still think he's a freak of nature, and I mean, his ability to go from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds is really freaky, man. So yeah, look, I think there have been some guys out there that have been transformational for sure, but not many. And again, because of how we played the game over the years, it's hard to ever say, in my opinion, what would have happened to Jerry Rice would have been back in the day. What would have happened if Fred Biletnikoff would have played today? I mean, it's just so hard to say, but yeah, I mean, there's so many great guys, man, that have uh, done so much for this league that that's a very good question though. I'm gonna ask my chat GPT about that question later on today. See what it comes up with.
Yeah, we had Chris Carter on, so I asked him about it also. I think just at the wide receiver position, it's been so many great players that have came through this game, and like you say, some guys have changed the game. But man, we want to thank you so much, man, for coming on with us today. This has been truly amazing, and we just want to thank you for your time and just sharing it with us today.
Hey, man, absolutely my pleasure, man. No doubt about it. Anytime.
All right, take care, Tim.
Appreciate it, Tim.
All right, guys. Y'all be good, man. Keep up the great work.
All right.